This big blue marble we call home ain't half bad, especially when compared to the settings of some dystopian novels. I mean, it could be a lot worse. Like, what if taking a bubble bath wasn't possible? It's an unimaginable horror that I don't even want to think about. Today I'm sharing 8 books with dystopian worlds and deciding which 4 are most appealing. Let's get things up and running with our first category. In the Run For It category, we have The Maze Runner versus The End of the World Running Club. The Maze Runner by James Dashner. This is a suspenseful YA sci-fi book with non-stop action. In it, Thomas is a 16-year-old boy who wakes up in a mysterious place called the Glade that's surrounded by towering stone walls and an enormous maze. He can't remember how or why he got here, and neither can the group of boys who are trapped with him. The other boys have cobbled together a small society, with one of the most important jobs being the runners, who explore the shifting maze that surrounds the Glade in hopes of finding a way out. Out in the maze, though, they're not safe. Dangers lurk around every corner, and time is running out for Thomas and the Gladers to solve the maze's puzzle and escape. The End of the World Running Club by Adrian J. Walker. Edgar is kind of a lazy, mediocre dad and husband. Then an asteroid hits the Earth, and stuff hits the fan. Edgar hunkers down in a bunker with his wife and children, trying his best to help them all survive in this new, feral world. But then he's mistakenly separated from his family, who are being taken hundreds of miles away. Edgar finds himself in a literal race against time to meet up with them. He'll need to turn into a long-distance runner and brave a devastated landscape filled with despair and evil to do so. In essence, he's trying to turn into a better human, physically and emotionally, while the humanity of others crumbles around him. Filled with moments of dark humor, it's a heroic, emotional journey that tests Edgar's resilience and will. So which dystopian world would I rather live in? Well, this one seems pretty cut and dry to me. It boils down to whether you'd rather be stuck hopelessly running around a giant prison-like maze or have some freedom in a collapsing world that lets you unintentionally prioritize your physical fitness. And with that clearly biased setup, I think it's obvious that I choose to live in the post-apocalyptic world of the End of the World Running Club. Yay! At least you know what you're up against, and there's no question marks about who you are and what you're doing in that world. In the dog-eat-dog category, we have 2 books that'll make your tail wag. The Dog Stars versus A Boy and His Dog at the End of the World. First up, let's talk about The Dog Stars by Peter Heller. After a flu pandemic wipes out most of the population, a man named Hig, his dog named Jasper, and a gun nut named Bangley survive alongside one another in an abandoned airplane hangar. Much of their time is spent keeping their home safe and secure from intruders. But when there's time, Hig, an airplane pilot, makes occasional flights to help nearby communities and their sick people. After Hig receives a mysterious radio transmission, it sticks in the back of his mind, giving him hope of connecting with others and perhaps building a new life for himself. I won't say more than that because I don't want to spoil anything. Obviously, there's a frightening raw element to this grief-stricken violent world, but there's also moments of beauty and peace. A Boy and His Dog at the End of the World by CA Fletcher. This book is set about a century after some cataclysmic event wipes out like 99% of the world's population. It starts out with a stranger visiting an isolated family and stealing some things from them, including a dog, which has become a rare animal. This causes the main character, Grizz, to chase after the stranger in order to try and get his dog back. Now, even though Grizz is out of his comfort zone and trailing an older, more cunning man, he's willing to do anything and put himself in harm's way to recover his beloved pet. And since there's only a tiny fraction of humans alive, this book is fittingly subdued. It has way less action than The Dog Stars, instead giving a lot of attention to the natural outdoor spaces that it takes place in. After looking at both of these dystopian novels where having a happening social life just isn't a thing and your dog is your BFF, I think I'd much rather live in the world of A Boy and His Dog at the End of the World. Yay! It just seems like The Dog Stars takes place in a more dangerous world, where you'd have to always be on edge. The setting of A Boy and His Dog at the End of the World has a vast openness to it. If you want to explore it, your safety and survival would depend mainly on yourself, rather than being dependent on the intentions of others. In the hot and cold category, we have Sand versus Far North. First up, let's talk about Sand by Hugh Howey. Everything in this world is covered in shifting sand dunes, and sand diving for long-buried treasures is how one group of siblings ekes out a living. But an ultra-dangerous dive to a legendary city far below the surface will change everything for this family as the truth about their world and abilities is discovered. There's some Mad Max vibes to this hot, sweaty world in which life is a constant struggle and water is tough to come by. On the flip side of the temperature gauge is Far North by Marcel Theroux. In this book, some environmental catastrophe or global warming event turns the Earth into a not-so-great place to live. The main character, Makepeace, is the sheriff of a tiny town in the frozen wilderness of Siberia, flipping a couple of classic Western elements on their head. Because more folks are heading north for a promise of a better life, Makepeace's town is getting more crowded and more violent. Then Makepeace witnesses a plane crash and encounters a character named Ping. These two events, along with a handful of clever twists, give Makepeace a greater purpose. It's another dystopian world that shows off the beauty and brutality of its rugged landscape, as well as the unbreakability of the human spirit. Civilization has all but collapsed, and yet there are still sparks of hope that keep Makepeace and other characters moving forward toward a goal that they probably won't even be able to realize in their lifetime. So now, to the verdict, which world would I rather live in? Well, I currently reside in Texas, so I know a lot about heat. I think a cold spot where you can make snow angels and build snowmen would be a nice change of pace. Plus, getting sand in your shoes, hair, teeth, and eyes is way more annoying than anything snow or ice can do, other than give you hypothermia. So I think I'd rather live in the world of Far North. Yay! In the dystopian roads category, we have The Wolf Road versus The Road. First up, The Wolf Road by Beth Lewis. A huge global war set the world of this book back into a time without technology, where it's every man, woman, or child for themselves. Think reality TV survival shows. When she was 7 years old and lost in the woods, Elka was rescued by a man she knows only as the Trapper. Now over the next 10 years, he turns her into a tough-as-nails survivor, teaching her how to hunt and stay alive in this wicked world. Eventually, she comes to view him as a father figure. Then Elka experiences a startling revelation, completely upending her relationship with the Trapper. This world seems like one that should be full of lumberjacks and 19th century adventurers. It shows the indifference of Mother Nature and how the consequences of humanity's actions can make the wilderness even more inhospitable. And then there's The Road by Cormac McCarthy. You're probably familiar with this classic dystopian masterpiece where a father and son are journeying through a deserted wasteland toward a southern coast. It's an empty world, nearly devoid of life and full of ash, gray, cold. Taking place after some extinction-level event, the setting is unforgiving. Strangers are more than likely going to try and kill you and take your stuff. Not exactly the friendliest of situations. Now, as for which world I'd rather live in, I'll take The Wolf Road any day of the week. Yay! There's a lower overall amount of desperation, and some people are finding a way to exist, whereas The Road just comes across as a barbaric, pointless, waking nightmare. There you have it, 8 dystopian worlds and the 4 that seem less terrible than the other 4. Now before you get back to the real world, be sure to share in the comments which world you would or wouldn't want to call home. And also remember to like and subscribe. Happy reading.